I see you, Dylan. I see you, Dylan. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Just stay on the line 1 minute. I will introduce. I'll go live. I'll, I'll put you in the background. Just stay on the line. Thank you.
Netflix on the screen, healthcare in between, physics, art, and math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive, blending facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need rich blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Matrix got the fix. Complex subjects made
right
clear.
now
Every episode
in ways that we actually acquire the
leads the way.
and ways that make me more efficient.
In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
Thank you so much for joining with me. It is a truly an honor and a privilege.
MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges on our live programming.
Hey, welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Ramana Annamaraju. I'm the host. We need while bringing the technology, we also need a bringing technology therapy for all of us. Is that much pressure nowadays? Technology is a pressure to think about non-technical people, how much pressure that it creates. But anyway, that's my blues for today. Let me talk about this artificial intelligence. Everybody buzzing around this topic. Actually, the first topic in healthcare, I interviewed on my channel Dr. Robert Pearl. He wrote a book on the Chat GPT MD. He wrote a book on it. And then after that, Harvey Castro was talking about quite a bit. He wrote a lot of books on the healthcare and AI. I think it's a challenging, to be honest with you. Then they said that artificial intelligence AI passed the USMLE test exams for the licensing exam for the medical profession for a doctor. Doctors are nervous. They're worried. They're worried about their jobs. They think that AI is going to take over. We don't know what is going on. What is the potential of AI? So there is a lot of one of the things is when you talk about AI, there's two things. One is the hardware and the software. There is a special kind of hardware, graphic processing units. I read a little bit about the hardware part of it, but I have an expert now coming up. His name is Dylan Patel. I saw him on Lex Friedman. He writes analysis, unbelievable. I mean, I was reading his blogs. He gives quite a bit of an extensive analysis on the process. So I'm going to bring him and let him. His analysis are wonderful. I hope he's not going to go too technical. We are all most of the people who are watching in healthcare people, so he's going to be kind to us and explain a little bit lower version of technical knowledge. But he's going to explain a little bit about we need to understand what the AI and what the AI hardware infrastructure requires, and what the DeepSeek is coming up. That's what they said that they changed the dynamics from China. So we need to talk with him. Let me bring Dylan Patel on the line. Hey, welcome, Dylan. Can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Dylan,
Thanks for having me on.
Nice meeting you, Dylan. Give me a little bit of your background. Where are you from, and where were you born, and how did you end up in Silicon Valley?
Sure. So I'm from Cairo, Georgia, which is a rural town in Georgia. And I grew up there in rural America. And then, I sort of ended up in the valley as I started my company outside of the valley, actually. But then I moved here more recently, right? So um, the story of sort of me getting to the valley is actually more me being in Asia, right? In Taiwan, Japan, Singapore, focusing on semiconductors before I ever moved over to the Bay.
So I wanted to ask you, you're from Georgia. He said, I'm from Georgia. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I lived in Georgia most of my life. So what part of Georgia he said?
Well, I'm from Cairo, Georgia, which is a rural part of Georgia. Not
Like
not
a
really
Baxley,
not really in the
southern
same
Georgia?
area as
Well,
Atlanta, but I do know Atlanta well.
okay. Well, that's somewhere in the southern Georgia. Where is a Griffin? Or you? I lived in Atlanta most of my life, actually. I moved here also, like you, for 4 or 5 years ago. I moved here. But maybe you can see me that much better than, let me, yeah, let me, okay.
Okay.
Let me, how do I do this? Yeah, let me do that. This is a little bit of a tricky thing. Okay. So, Dylan,
Yeah.
so then you studied in Georgia, you studied computer science, or where did you go to school? Georgia Tech?
Yeah, I went to school in Georgia, and then I graduated in 2018, and I worked in quant risk for a few years before I started my company, which focuses on the semiconductor industry.
So let us talk about a little bit about the infrastructure for the AI. Doctors don't know much about it, but it give us a little bit about the infrastructure, what it requires. We are hearing a lot of different conflicts. Some of them are say we need a multi-billion, $500 billion investment required, and then China came out with a deep seek with a very $5 million investment. So what is this confusion? Is it really what is the a little bit give us a rundown on the infrastructure side of the AI?
Sure. So I think the interesting thing on the infrastructure side for AI is really around just how pervasive it is, right? When we look at power consumption by state, right, something pretty simple. There are certain states where more than half their power is going to be consumed by AI just in the next few years, right? So while many states won't have too many data centers, some states will just be there'll be data centers everywhere, right? And this all of these data centers and all this compute will be leveraged on all sorts of areas, right? Today we already see nascent uses of AI in things like drug discovery, and that's only going to get stronger, right? But there's also a lot of things in genomics, biogenomics, proteomics, use of AI, and that so at least in the medical field, there's a lot of use. Starting to come up. Obviously, it's a little bit slower because of regulatory reasons, but in areas like software development, AI's use is dramatic, right? And so when we look at the use of AI within industries, different rates, but it's pretty clear with the pace of AI innovation, right? How fast the AI models are getting better. People are going to be able to use them to solve problems faster, more efficiently, and deliver better lives for people.
So Dylan, everybody talks about GPU, graphic processing unit. Tell us what is the role of a graphic processing unit? Why is it so important? NVIDIA manufactures them. Tell us a little bit about that. Why that is so important? And then Google calls it different name, Tensor TPU. Tell us a little bit about that. Not too much details, but the technical, just a basic high level description.
Yeah, I think when you zoom out from computing, there's sort of just a couple different kinds of chips, right? There's CPUs, which are generally what you find in most everyday devices and laptops, et cetera. And they're good as doing one thing really fast, right? And so you have CPU cores, you have just a few CPU cores, and they do some things really fast. GPUs or graphics processing units are exactly the opposite, right? They're actually quite slow at doing individual tasks, but they're really good at doing very parallel tasks, right? So graphics processing units were invented to draw the pixels on your screen, right? Turn them on or off, make them yellow, make them red, make them green. Which colors do you want to show? How many do you want to show to make it so you can see pretty pictures or play video games or render some radiology thing, right? These are all like graphics processing tasks. And so AI happened to, just so happened to be developed on GPUs initially. Right. Initially, CPUs were so expensive. AI requires a lot of compute, and then everything else was very specialized and expensive. So there's these famous AI researchers, Ilya Sutskever, Jeffrey Hinton, and Alex Krasinski. Right. These guys made AI, the first AI model that we would recognize as similar to what's today, called AlexNet. Right. And all it did was recognize images better than humans can. And they did this on a graphics processing unit from NVIDIA, right? And this is because, well, CPUs were really slow because they're really focused on a single task. GPUs are focused on doing many tasks at once. Now, initially, GPUs were used for graphics, and it just happened to be okay for AI. But now, if you look at the best GPUs that NVIDIA makes for AI, they can't even do graphics processing, right? So they're still called GPUs, because they share a similar architecture, but they're not able to render pixels. That's not what their task is. They're actually just focused on AI processing. And then around the same time that NVIDIA made their GPUs start being focused on AI, around 2015, Google also did the same thing, but instead of using GPUs, they made their own chip called the TPU, right? And so this is where sort of the initial waves of AI hardware came from. And now today, every Google search runs through a TPU. Right.
Is it a different name? Is it just the name itself, or is it a functionally different way it approaches the problem? TPU.
So the problem at its core is is multiplying and dividing and summing a bunch of numbers in parallel, right? And so in that sense, the TPU is very similar to a GPU, but in many ways the architecture is different, right? GPUs use use various, like the microarchitecture. I don't know how much you want to get into, but they're both really focused around multiplying massive matrices of numbers, right? That is the base thing that they do. And so yes, there are a lot of differences between the two because of lineage, because of how you program them, right? NVIDIA's focus is, I have to serve every company in the world and help them do AI. So I need to make it really, really easy to program, and I need to make it so every generation is compatible. Whereas Google is focused on the TPU is just for me and just for my workloads and just for a number of them. So I'm only focused on making it programmable for my team. Yes, I do try and sell them some, but I'm really focused on, and I'm only focused on one use case, which is AI. Right. Whereas NVIDIA has to focus on, yes, AI, also has to focus on image generation, has to focus on, all sorts of things related to simulations. So NVIDIA has a wider net that they have to target.
So the neural network is supposed to be, it's not exactly the brain's neural net, a combination of a kind of a copy of the neural network of the brain, but it's not true. But the GPUs are meant to, these networks, to compute these networks, right? That's a neural network. So find a solution, recognize the images or anything like that, radiology or any images. These are GPUs are more useful to do the neural network kind of architecture.
Yeah. So neural networks are, the way you can think of them is it's a major, huge numbers of numbers that you're multiplying. You're doing a simple operation. You're multiplying, you're adding, right? And then you're normalizing, right? You're either taking a average or a sum and then you're maxing the number, whatever it is. These are the simple operations that you string together, and you do billions, if not trillions of operations every time you go through one of these large language models, right? You go through billions or trillions of calculations, depending on the size, right, of the model. And then it generates a piece of text, right? And that piece of text is, if you've watched any of these AI models, they generate them in sequence, right? They don't just give you the whole thing. They give you, just a small pieces of a word, and it slowly streams out, right? So if you go to ChatGPT, that's what it is. Every single time it's outputting a little piece of text that's going through the full model, right? And so there are trillions and trillions of calculations needed to just make simple statements like the sky is blue, right? Because, if you ask what color is the sky and it says the sky is blue, it takes trillions of calculations to calculate this because you're going through the model many times. And so that's why these parallel processing units are very useful, is because in the model, every parameter, or you could think of it simply like neuron, needs to be multiplied, right? I'm trying to simplify, and so there's some complexity lost, but each of these neurons basically has to have multiple operations associated with it, and they can be done in parallel. And so that's why GPUs are really useful, but also why TPUs are useful for it, and why CPUs are not good at it.
Yeah. The training data, a lot of AIs are depend on a lot of training data. So the training data, the GPUs are fundamental to the training data, and the architecture of the transformer network they call neural network, for example, is that the GPUs are fundamental to the Is that right? If I understand you correctly, that these are the GPUs are fundamental to the training data.
Yeah, so it's interesting. These large language models are trained on two types of data. One is literally everything on the internet, every book that's ever been posted on the internet, every scientific article, every post on Twitter, every post on Reddit, right? So all the way from social media to informational content, transcripts of YouTube videos, everything on the internet, it's trained on that first. Right. And then it's trained on a second set of data, which is much smaller. The smaller set of data is specifically labeled, right, by people, right, and it's designed to give you instruction following and safety and all of these things, right? Like if you ask the models to say something bad, they'll refuse because that's in that second set of data. If you ask them a question, oftentimes it won't just ask more questions, right? It won't answer with more questions because that's if you look up questions on the internet, oftentimes they're in the list of questions. Instead, it'll give you the answer, right? And so this is like some features that are trained into a specific set of data. And when you look at specific applications, right, this is where AI can fall on its face, right? Because you have the entire internet, and everyone knows the internet has every opinion you could ever want, right? You could have pro X, pro Y, anti X, anti Y, anything, politics or food, right? A discussion about what the best bread is, right? There's going to be so many discussions about stuff on the internet. But then the specifically labeled data is the sort of like what you want the AI to act like. But the challenge is getting this specific data is very costly, right? It's cheap to just take everything from the internet, right? It's very expensive to have very specific data labeled by experts, right? And so when we look at applications like the medical field, well, yes, the model has read every single medical journal ever, right? That's awesome, right? And so it generally knows enough to be dangerous, but sometimes it's inaccurate because it doesn't actually have, notes, the notes from the doctor's visit, right? It doesn't have all these other details that you would want to have. And it's never been presented with these sorts of things because this data is all hidden away under HIPAA and all these other things. And there's no doctors writing like, hey, here's the symptoms, here's the meeting, here's the notes, here's the issue and how it was solved. This isn't in the training data set, right? This isn't in the specific small set of data, right? And likewise, you take a radiology exam and it's like, well, actually models are getting pretty good at radiology because there are some data sets where people have paid for radiologists to look at, the readings and then say what's wrong, right? And so data models are getting somewhat good at that. So it's all about where the data is too, right? So that's another aspect of these.
The doctor, before the pandemic, there was a lot of talk about AI. That Sundar Pichai, Google said that we can predict the flu season 3 months in advance. So, in fact, they could not even predict the pandemic, which is a storm and killed 8 million people. So there is a lot of skepticism among the medical community about the AI's prediction. What changed that prediction? Now you're all confident AI guys. What changed that prediction now? Tell me that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's, I do want to note, right, it's hard to get the data for the medical field. And so models are generally going to lag in capabilities for medical versus other fields, right? I think that's just, then this is something that I think if we can get the data out there, if we could get every single medical note ever, right, from every doctor that's been digitized and every EMR, and train on it, I bet these models would get a lot better, but we're not able to, right? So just to be clear, because this is like privacy concerns, right? So the reason why we're so excited about AI is not because the data is getting there slowly. People offer up data. Hospital systems will work with a model company to train a model just for them. Like these sorts of things will happen over time. But more importantly, the internet data has been there, right? And people have had that for years. But in 2020, no model could write code, right? No model could even talk to humans well, right? By 2022, 2023, they were starting to get okay. Now we're in 2025 and the software engineering market is horrible, right? If you know any software engineers who are just graduating, it's very hard to get a job. if you know any, people that are, who have been laid off, and the market is tough. Like the wages are not going. Their wages are in fact not even going up. They're kind of flatlining because AI is so useful in software engineering today, because the models have improved so much in capabilities, in scale, their ability to learn, and the data sets provided to them, they're able to learn from them and actually do parts of the job. Are they replacing programmers outright? No, but they are making programmers much more efficient, right? And so this sort of, is the hope that AI can, there's some bad ramifications, right? People not being able to find jobs, but the flip side is developing software is much cheaper now. And the medical field has real big problems in America with how expensive the medical system is. And there's got to be ways to help improve the cost. Now, most of the cost is in administration, right? I think you know that. And so, there's a lot of administrative tasks that people are trying to push models into. And that's really where I'm most excited about it, is because administrative tasks have less regulatory burden, right? There's less risk if something goes wrong. And so this seems like the right spot. And so when we look at like the insurance claims industry, right, there's a lot of AI integration already happening there. And maybe there's like, for the doctors out there, it's like, oh, well, my claims are automatically getting rejected by AI instead of a human. This is possible. But I think that things will get better and more efficient with AI, and there's a little bit of going to be growing pains. People are going to hate it, but at the end of the day, society itself is going to change, right? AI is, the intelligence level of AI is huge. Yes, it gets stuff wrong. It'll get stuff wrong less over time. It's not going to happen in the blink of an eye, like many people in Silicon Valley, I believe, but it is going to happen, and we are going to get more efficient as humanity.
Dylan, you used a word called ha movement. Is that AI kind of it doesn't need to be trained on a particular data. It is started thinking on its own without a training with that particular data. That the trained data is actually never trained on those data, but still is answering the questions. That is a really very strange, and it is a kind of intelligence, is exhibiting a kind of intelligence, right?
Yeah, so I think there's two different things, right? Like when humans don't need to read the exact text or see the exact thing to be able to predict what happens, right? Now, obviously, if you've studied something a lot, you're going to be a lot better than someone who studied it a little bit, right? But I could read a bunch of papers about diabetes and then all of a sudden start opining on what the best type of insulin is for a patient, right? That doesn't mean it's the right answer, but I can definitely give opinions. And hey, a lot of the times I might even be right. Right. But I'm definitely not a doctor. Right. And so this is sort of the case, right? Like, it's, there's doctors and they're trusted with a certain level of stuff. PAs are trusted with a certain level of stuff. Nurses are trusted with a level of stuff, sort of. And then, CRNs are trusted with a level of stuff. They've all had different levels of education, but they've learned some stuff. They've generalized and they have opinions. And this is the way models work too. I think, yes, it hasn't seen the exact same thing, right? That's because it's generalized and learned generally what's up with that field. It's read every paper about insulin, right? So it has opinions, right? Even if it hasn't read every paper about insulin, it still has opinions because it's a model, right? Humans are just like this too, right? But what's interesting now is that models are starting to develop the ability to think in a chain, right? Before they give an answer, right? So before, models were put in data, get
you
answer.
Think. It is thinking. That's what you're saying. It is.
Yeah. So this is something that's been developed in the last 6 months. That's been really exciting for software and math. It hasn't made its way to the medical field yet, but it's something that's been really exciting in software and math. Basically, college level math tests were initially 4% for before this innovation was happened, to now they're scoring 70-80%, the best leading edge models, right? And this has just happened in 6 months. And the same applies to various certain coding tasks. The same applies to, And so this feature, or this ability for models to not just do input data, give answer, but instead input data, think on its own for a period of time, and then give an answer, has been tremendously powerful in increasing the capabilities of models over the last 6 months. And sort of this is something that it's called reasoning, right? What the industry calls reasoning. This is a huge capability that's been very helpful for math and coding, and the hope is that this can be extended to many domains, not just math and coding.
You think it's eventually threaten the jobs of the doctors, because that reasoning is one of the most important ones What do you think of that in your view?
I think job loss for doctors is not going to happen anytime soon, right? I think it is a lot of assistance, right? Like, hey, yes, if the doctor makes a prescription or decides what drug to give, great. And the pharmacist is going to check if there's any drug interactions, but also let's have the model also check, right? Or the model's like, hey, I think this may be an interaction that's bad, and the pharmacist goes and like really looks into it, right? Or the radiologist reads the graph, but then also the model does, and then like they feed off of each other, right? I think most of, especially in the medical field, the stakes are too high, right? But if this technology can make doctors more efficient, nurses more efficient, or the administration more efficient, then the healthcare that a doctor can provide to a community can grow. The quality will be better, but also the amount of healthcare they can provide can be better, right? So I don't think it's going to be a job loss thing, and definitely, right, like we have a shortage, right? Especially in like rural America. I know my brother graduated sort of, and he got his job offers in rural America were like twice the pay of in nice cities. Of course, he decided to live in a nice city. His wife who's also a doctor, but like it's like this is a real crisis, right? The town I grew up in, there's a crisis for doctors and nurses, and likewise in many other parts of America. And so I think this efficiency gain is necessary, especially with healthcare ballooning in cost as a percentage of GDP, right? It needs to be bent, right? Especially as people age and the amount of healthcare needed is going to soar, and all these other factors. It's definitely something that's really needed. Otherwise, we may not be able to give everyone the healthcare they deserve or need.
Yeah, it may not definitely, because AI is a complex system. Biological processes are a complex system. Two complex systems could be unpredictable. Results can come. So we need a doctor to be present up there. So isn't there is no danger to their jobs at this time at least. But I want to
I
ask
think
you.
regulation also helps, right? No one's going to replace a doctor. I think admin staff who are like filing claims, and for example, I mentioned like rejecting the prescription that the doctor prescribed, right? Or going back and forth 10 times, or these sorts of things that are a lot of burden and cost on the system. Inputting data and all these things. I think these AI can help a lot, and reduce cost. And maybe there's some job loss there, but there's definitely, I don't think that we as a society will allow AIs to just make our healthcare decisions, right? Just like we as a society in America won't allow the government to like say what we can and cannot do with our bodies, right? This is just the sort of society we live in.
Yeah. Insurance company main function is risk analysis. So AI? Do you think one day AI can do that risk analysis and eliminate all these middlemen? There's administrative costs, huge administrative costs in the healthcare system. It can eliminate eventually. AI is it possible that insurance companies could disappear eventually in the future?
I doubt insurance companies will disappear, because just like the many aspects of the medical field, the insurance companies have been regulated into law, right? So we would need a dramatic change of how the legal system works, to make insurance companies less powerful. Likewise, pharmaceutical companies continue to get extensions on their patents for certain drugs that are 20 years, 30 years old, right? 40 years old. So they're not going to, just because it would be possible doesn't mean that it's possible in the framework of how our sort of society is set up, and changing the laws is very difficult.
There's laws are secondary. I mean, laws are important, but I think the natural progression is advances automatically solves the problem. Let me ask you about the AI's role in general. You told that it reduces the administrative costs. It reduces a lot of costs, but the one of the costs that we have to encounter is a $500 billion they're asking. That is a cost that eventually going to the consumer, right? While China, you wrote a very nice column about China coming with a deep seek with a lot less price. So tell us a little bit, where is this war between these AI companies?
Yeah, so there's two different aspects here. One is making models at a certain level cheaper, right? And so that's always going to happen, right? If we go back to the models from GPT-3, right, which is the last generation AI model that OpenAI, or sort of like 2 generations ago, maybe even, right? GPT-3 cost $60 for the million output, and over time that kept reducing, right? OpenAI released new models, Anthropic released new models, Google released new models, Meta released new models, right? And then now it is 1200x cheaper for the same output, right? Same quality of AI model. So DeepSeek did a similar thing, right? Over time, OpenAI had GPT-4, then they had 4.0, 4 Turbo. Meta released Llama 405B, and then Llama 70B 3.3, right? Like all these different models came out and kept reducing the cost, but then DeepSeek came out with a model that was cheaper as well. And so now DeepSeek's model is something like 400 to 600x cheaper than the original GPT-4. But this is the progression you get because of the advancement, right? That's one way to look at it is, existing capabilities get cheaper. But as useful as GPT-4 is, it can't do medical tasks, right? Just like that, DeepSeek cannot do medical tasks. And there's many other areas where it just can't do the task, right? And so the one area is making a model cheaper. The other is making the model better, right? And so both of these things are things that people do, right? One is focusing research. It's just, okay, making models better means I can either make a bigger, better model, or B, I can make the same quality model, but cheaper, right? And that's the sort of things that are pulling here, right? And so, yes, if you only care about GPT-4 level model, which is enough to help your, kids cheat in school or whatever, great. But if you want a model that can actually help you automate software engineering or automate, parts of the claims administration stack, or help you automate, all sorts of other functions throughout society, right? Help you do legal stuff, right? All of this stuff, you need the models to be a lot better. And so, hey, why do I need to spend there's the announcements of Stargate, $500 billion. That is all coming from, hey, we believe that the models continue to get better and better and better if we spend more money, if we keep doing research. And because of that, we're going to commit to this, right? People are going to invest. Most of the investments aren't from the public market. They're from private companies. But, of course, one day the models will come out, and those models will hopefully generate enough economic value that they pay for those clusters, that $500 billion of data centers that people are building.
Let us talk about regulations and guardrails a little bit. That somebody can sit down in the Timbuktu or somewhere in southern Georgia, can come down in the garage and ask a protein to produce a deadly virus, a virus that you cannot defend. How do we protect these kind of bad actors from doing those bad things?
Yeah, so I think all these negatives, whether it's making a virus or posting misinformation online, this has always existed, and we have to have defense mechanisms, right? And it turns out that AIs are really good at defense mechanisms too, right? You can go ask AstraZeneca, and COVID vaccine was developed with the help of AI, right? So this is AI helping protect us from coronavirus, whatever the source of coronavirus was. But also, like, going into the future, there's misinformation online. It used to be that Meta had to hire hundreds and thousands of people to sift through posts that got reported to see if it needed to be removed or not. Now they have AI systems that remove posts that have nudity and child things and like violence. Like, they just automatically remove it through AI. And so this is sort of, the hope is that you can build AI systems that are defensive, not just offensive, right? And this has been the case always, right? There have always been hackers, and yet I have never had money stolen from my bank account, despite the fact that hackers exist, and most people haven't, right? Because there are defense mechanisms that are humongous investments by the banks to prevent this sort of fraud from happening, right? Now, fraud still happens some, but that's a but most of it doesn't happen, right? So it's all about using AI as defense.
But there's a new kind of scammers.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
There are new scammers coming in the picture, bad actors, scammers, romance scammers, technology scammers, that say Microsoft support, the Amazon support, all these things from all over the world. There's a lot of scams. Why not technology and AI prevent this assault on American public? It's a constant public. There's a billions of dollars lost from a woman. Most of the women, that 70 years old woman, they trick them into somebody else's pictures. They post them. This is a kind of a assault on the public without any guardrails. How can the technology can protect these people? That's the first and foremost thing, right? Protect this human-centric design has to be done, right?
Technology always can be used badly. but it's also generally lifted people's lives up and made
Yeah.
them better, right? So while technology, whether it's cars making people who took care of horses lose jobs, or car crashes killing people, but then there's all sorts of technology around airbags and stuff, so it's actually safer than ever to drive on a road. All sorts of technologies can hurt humanity, help humanity, and its technology is not in its own negative. The use of it can be, but we can always build ways to make it
Is
positive.
it difficult to put a technical barriers for these kind of scams? That without using the abstract word. So technology, it does good and bad. But actually, in fact, can they tell you these are the people coming from a country? They are not telling that they are coming from Georgia, rather than they're coming from Nigeria or some other country they're coming from. So you can tell the differences between these scammers. AI cannot predict the differences between them.
Yeah, I think there's AI models that can be used to recognize fraud, to recognize bad actors, and this is a business to be
Yeah.
made, right? There's defense companies across standard computing, right? There's cybersecurity companies, and there's going to be AI cybersecurity companies that get built and protect humans. Yeah, that's sort of like the
Yeah.
what's going to happen, right?
Let us talk about
I think
let us talk about positive things. One of the things I'm crazy about drones, because I just mentioned to you the drone. We are getting older. Your father, grandfather, me, and everybody. A lot of America is getting older, and baby boom generation. We don't have enough resources to. We don't have enough resources to um, provide all this huge demand on the healthcare services. Can we use drones to deliver medications? I mean, they are using it, but there's a lot of restrictions. They're not widely used, or deliver food, or deliver emergency like defibrillators. Can we do that through the drones mechanisms?
Yeah, definitely. I think you can see this in Rwanda. There's some really cool drone delivery for blood and collection of blood and things like that. So, and for drugs, I think technology could be used to improve drug delivery, reduce cost, and make it more accessible for everyone. I think that's the real moral of the story here. Yeah. I do unfortunately, have to
Yeah,
go. Thank you so much for your
yeah.
time. But
But let me ask you a
yeah,
final
this is,
question.
I think we should leave it on the optimist note of
Yeah,
like,
let
yeah,
us talk about optimism.
technology and
Yeah,
AI is,
AI can do. What are the things to AI can do healthcare? You think reduce the cost of the healthcare system? That's a huge exuberant cost in healthcare. Your brother is a doctor. He knows that, and the doctors are not happy. Patients are not happy. Insurance company, nobody is happy here. Why you think AI can change that scenario? This is a right now we are positive. I was strongly feel AI can help some of these burdens, the administrative burdens, as you mentioned, is can reduce that can free up the doctors. So give us your final analysis on the health AI, uh, and the AI benefits of healthcare.
yeah, I think like it goes back to like, yeah, you can reduce the cost, whether it's through administrative cost. You can administer better healthcare because the doctor can work in conjunction with AI, the nurse can work in conjunction with AI. I think you even need robotics who can watch elderly when there's not enough nurses around. I think there's a variety of ways that healthcare can be improved with AI, and hopefully lead us to sort of have better visibility in that way.
Dylan, you did an excellent job, and you write your blogs are wonderful. I read it, a few of them. You give an excellent analysis of the good things and about the AI and all this hardware. I don't understand all the technical words, but a lot of these, some of the things that your analysis is an excellent. So I think we need to give a AI benefit, and the skepticism is always there, but AI can do wonders, as you said, that movement. That's a aha movement is came into the AI. It's a thinking model is coming to the AI. I think it's a enormous benefit to the humanity itself all over the world, including India and other countries where there is no access to doctors. It could help. AI could help. So I let you do the final word and then let you go. Thank you so much for joining with us. It is a truly an honor.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, you can check out my Twitter or website if you want to see more But generally, yeah, we focus on AI infrastructure and server supply chains, and data center supply chains. So I think it's a bit different audience, but hopefully people enjoyed this conversation. I
You
sure
did. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dylan. Good night, all of you.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.